I'd like to call to order tonight's regular meeting of the Village Board and of Trustees and the Mayor. It is March 23rd. Our first order of business, of course, is the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we're going to be led by a student from Pleasantdale Elementary School. It's Tricia Penmecha. She is, according to her principal, who is also here tonight. Tricia is an outstanding fourth grader, and she's a very hard worker and a positive role model for all the other students. At school, Tricia plays the viola in the school orchestra and loves art class. In fact, she designed the cover to this year's yearbook. In her spare time, Tricia she loves tennis, bike riding, piano, and being with her family, including her brother, Aman. Her parents, Taruna and Sanjay, are here tonight with us. Now, Tricia, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tricia, and thank you all for joining us. Karen, may I have roll call, please?
Trustee Francis. Trustee Grasso.
Here.
Trustee Paveza.
Here.
Trustee Bolus. Trustee Ruzak.
Here.
Trustee Maneri. Mayor Straub.
Here. First item is, of course, the audience portion. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. Under minutes, 5A, approval of a regular board meeting of March 9th, 2015. 5B, approval of budget workshop of March 9th, 2015. 5C, receive and file draft pathway commission meeting of March 12th, 2015. 5D, receive and file draft E911 board meeting of March 16th, 2015. Under ordinances, 6A, approval of ordinance amending Chapter 3, Article 5, Section 5.4 of the Village of Burr Ridge Municipal Code relating to a quorum for the Pathway Commission. Under considerations, 8B, approval of recommendation to authorize contract for seal coating of Village Hall and Public Works parking lots. 8C, approval of recommendation to authorize contract for replacement F-150 pickup truck, unit number 22. Under considerations, 8D, receive and file 2014-15 targets for action update report. And 8E, which is approval of vendor lists in the amount of $467,884.22 for all funds, plus $190,127.57 for payroll, for a grand total of $658,011.79, which includes special expenditures of $21,004 to HD Supply Waterworks for a 3/4 census iParallel meters, $50,224 to HD Supply Waterworks for 1-inch census iParallel meters, and $58,750 to HD Supply Waterworks for MXU SmartPoint 510 millimeter touch coupler radio. May I have a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, 6A. Under considerations, 8B, 8C, 8D, and 8E.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Trustee Grasso.
Yes.
Trustee Ruzak.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
All items passed 4-0. First item up for discussion under considerations. Consideration of recommendation to authorize contract for 2015 EAB treatment. Mr. Paul May.
Good evening. At this time of year, we present the EAB treatment program for action and consideration by the Village Board. Our village was impacted by EAB emerald ash borer in 2008, after which time we generated a program to deal with the infestation. And that progressed from the initial infestation where we really had a containment technique to, once we did have village-wide infestation, strategy, which we've identified as a managed decline strategy, by which we treat a certain number of the ash trees each year, and we take no action on the others until mortality strikes, at which time they're removed and replaced. The trees that have been identified for treatment, it's about 870 trees. We have solicited bids from qualified contractors, and the low bid contractor for this year for EAB treatment in Burr Ridge is Kramer Tree Specialties. They've done it for a number of years, not exclusively. Davies also done it for a couple of years, but Kramer is certainly familiar with our protocol and our expectations and qualified to do the work. So we are recommending this evening approval of that contract with Kramer. We would expect that that work would take place in mid-April through early May, and we will coordinate that information with the homeowners associations and the homeowners directly through our website. I also have a presentation that we make to the board each year for both feedback to the board, providing performance metrics, but also public information to the village and the residents and homeowners associations as well. And Steve has that on the board here. The first slide is a summary of our inventory, and again, as I mentioned, we had our initial infestation in 2008. In 2011, we identified village-wide infestation, and so at that point, the village staff and the village board worked together and spent quite a bit of time identifying a treatment and management strategy. The first component of that was to do a village stem-by-stem tree inventory of every tree in the village's system, every publicly owned tree. And in 2012, our system consisted of a little over 12,000 trees, of which 2,152 were ash, the vast majority of those green ash. And the chart to the right here shows the composition of the entire urban forest. You can see that the largest components are maple and ash, comprising almost 40% between the two of them. And that's a concern. That's a concern because that's an overrepresentation of those species. Really, the ideal goal is no more than 5% of any species to be included in the urban forest for exactly this reason. If you recall Dutch elm disease, emerald ash borer, Asian longhorn beetle, those are all species-specific diseases or infestations. So the more of your urban forest that is comprised of one type of species, the more impact it has when something like that comes through. The more diversity that exists in the urban forest, the lesser impact it has when those things come through. And so that was one of our primary objectives in establishing our procedure. Steve, if you could go to the next slide, please. And what we decided upon ultimately was what we call a managed decline scenario. And the objective there is to constrain costs. It is known that all untreated ash trees will die in the United States and North America if left untreated. And so we had a few objectives. One is that we wanted to spread the costs for removal and replacement out. There are some towns that proactively removed all of their ash trees and are replacing them over a number of years. That's extraordinarily expensive to do for 2,152 ash trees. Other towns are taking no action, but then they expect all the trees to die within a very short period of time, which in Burr Ridge we would estimate would be about 5 years, and then you would be compelled by the fact that there would be hazard trees to remove and replace those trees, which would still be a very expensive proposition over a very short window of time. We also thought that there was some value in preserving certain trees. The trees do impact homeowners' property. They impact the aesthetics of the village as a whole. And so what we did is we set a target of 5%, so that if we were to reduce that ash population to what would be 5%, which is the diversity metric that we were shooting for, which trees would be the best to save. So we identified a number, 5%, which is about 870 trees, and then we looked at the inventory to see which trees we thought would be most receptive to the treatment and have the greatest chance for success. And so this chart on the right here is a little bit complicated, but it shows on the left column the size of the tree in diameter. The bottom is a condition rating, And then you can see which trees we've identified for treatment in each size. Generally, what we've done is we've identified trees for treatment if they were 12 inches or larger in diameter and in good or excellent condition. Trees that were ranked poor or worse in 2012 have been removed, planned for removal, and at this point, removal is essentially complete for those, using both contractual forces and public works forces. And then the remainder of the trees, we will take no action. And that leaves a few alternatives. One, the homeowners may elect to treat them. And some homeowners and homeowners associations have elected to treat the trees that were untreated by the village in front of their home simply to try to preserve those. And we provide the homeowners with the alternative of doing that if they wish. Other trees will eventually suffer mortality. We do expect all the untreated trees to die, and the village removes and replaces those as that occurs. If I could have the next slide, please. Our program to date has been very successful. It's a program we're proud of, and it's actually served as a kind of a guide for some of the other area municipalities that have adopted a similar protocol. Some of the keys to success are management flexibility in order to address changing conditions. That's something that is necessary to do. There will be trees that have a certain amount of crown dieback that we should no longer treat, where we would not be spending our money effectively on those trees. There are other changes that are necessary in order to accommodate removal. So in other words, in a subdivision, we might try to stagger the removal. So if one tree is slightly declining, we might leave it up for another year so that we don't remove a number of trees in a row, and we can get the growth cycle staggered back behind. Public information campaign is something that's been very critical to our success. Frankly, I think our community and the residents in our community are very well informed about EAB. I have people talk to me about it all the time. I think that's largely due, or at least partly due, to the fact that we have had an effective public information campaign. We reach out directly to all the homeowners association contacts. We have a very robust GIS portal whereby residents and homeowners associations can research their lot to see if there are trees, ash trees, and whether they will be treated or untreated. We have documentation that we provide to our contractors in the village newsletter and on local access television. And we send letters to all the homeowners directly with untreated ash trees. And lastly, coordination with interested residents is important as well. There are some subdivisions that will have a more significant impact than others. Like I mentioned previously, we reach out to them directly. Upon request, we are happy to meet with the homeowners associations during their annual meetings to provide additional information as well. And we have done both of those things on many occasions. If I could have the next slide, please. Some program metrics and status to date. We do have our GIS portal, has been in effect for a number of years. This is an image in the right of what you might see if you were to go to the village's website. And there's a link for EAB map. And if you zoom in on your site, it will show the address, and it will show all the trees, and it will indicate untreated ash trees. It will also indicate treated ash trees. So if you're a homeowner that might have a question about whether there's an ash tree in front of your home, sometimes it can be difficult to visually identify the trees, especially in the winter. You can go to the village's website, zoom in on your lot, and it will indicate whether there's an ash tree, and if there is, whether it will be treated or not. As I mentioned, we also have direct contact to the HOAs directly. We have direct contact to homeowners associations and homeowners which have untreated ash on their property. I should say in the village property in front of their property. And lastly, of course, there's operational impacts as well. We've removed 400 ash trees to date with both village forces, public works forces, and contractors. And we are treating about 870 trees annually at this point. That's about 14,000 inches of trees, diameter inches of trees. And replanting 50 to 100 trees a year. We used to plant 100 trees a year in 2008 or 2009. We decreased that for budgetary reasons, and this is the first year that number will go back up from 50 to 100. That's done with public works forces. We identify the sites, coordinate with homeowners relative to the species and the placement of the tree, and then we do replace those trees. Not all sites are any longer sites to be planted. We do have a spacing limitation, so there are some locations where we don't replant a tree, but in those cases, we coordinate with the homeowner association or the homeowner, and they are aware of that and they're communicated with. So to date, we have been able to, with our program, replace all ash trees that have been removed that have a valid planting location remaining. So we've been very pleased with that, and we've been able to do that without spiking the budget. And the last one, and the metrics here, it's a little bit hard to read, I think, because of the colors, but we have removed 400 of the untreated ash trees, which is 1,284. That's about 31% of the untreated ash trees that have suffered mortality at this point and have been removed. By comparison, only 30 of the 870 or 868 ash trees have been removed. Those are the treated trees. So a much lower mortality rate among the treated trees. So I do believe that our system, our protocol is being effective to date. That's a 3.5% mortality rate among the treated trees versus over a 30% mortality rate among the untreated trees. So it's been effective not only in stabilizing the costs and constraining the costs associated with dealing with this, but also in preserving the trees that we initially identified for treatment and for preservation. And as I mentioned previously, to date, all the removed ash trees with eligible planting locations have been replanted within a year. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions at this time.
Trustee Grasso?
I know we're talking about the public property and public land, but obviously there are a lot of ash trees on the private property as well. If you were going to be in an area, is it possible to notify a homeowner that you're going to be there, and perhaps, or if the tree removal company was going to be there, maybe they could give them a better deal on getting trees removed from their property rather than, because it is a costly endeavor, but everybody should want to get rid of those, because otherwise we're just encouraging those little emerald ash borers to jump around right onto the, got to get them all taken care of or out.
Right. We do precisely that for treatment. So in this case this evening, the board will act on the Kramer tree contract, and then we reach out to the homeowners association and say, this is our contractor, this is our schedule. You may choose whoever you like or no treatment, but if you choose to contact our contractor, this is the contact information, this is when they'll be in town.
But unfortunately, you're talking about homeowners associations. A lot of us don't live within a homeowners association.
And the homeowners as well, with untreated ash trees, will receive a letter that has that information. So those will go directly to homeowners individually, whether they're in a homeowners association or not, that has that contact information available for them. And that's also available on our website as well.
Anyone else? Trustee Francis?
Yes, thank you. So 96.5% survival rate amongst the treated trees. Are you satisfied with that rate? Is that what you expected?
That's far greater than we expected at this point.
Greater than we expected,
yes.
okay.
We initially, and this has been an emerging thing. There's not a lot of data on it. It's only existed in the United States for a short period of time, starting in Michigan, then propagating through Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana. So there's not a lot of factual information. There's not a long-term case study. There's no control group. So initially what we were hoping for, what we were targeting, was around 70% success rate. So at this point, and we started doing treatment in 2009, at this point it's far exceeding our initial expectations. Frankly, I don't expect that number to hold at 95%, but I also don't expect it to drop as low as 70.
Okay, thank you. Also, the mortality rate is 1/10 of what an untreated tree is, and that's a surprising figure as well. That's something to think about. Also, will the residents, I know in past years, residents have been offered a special pricing by the treatment company if they want to have their private trees treated. Will that be the case as well this year, if it were to go to Cape Canaveral?
We will provide that information. The contractor does not have to provide the contract price that they provide per diameter inch to the village, but we do share that with residents, so they have it as a negotiation tool. And they will benefit from the fact that they are in town. If the ash tree, if it's a large 4-acre parcel and the ash tree is way back in the back in a wooded area, their price is going to be different than if it's in the front yard near the street. But they certainly may utilize those resources, the village's contact information and pricing as a bargaining tool to contract directly with the contractor if they choose to do so. which in this case is Kramer Tree Services.
Very good. Thank you.
One more thing, Paul. Do we have any idea when we say that the ash are surviving, after they've survived 2 years or after they've survived 5 years, then we think the mortality, they won't be hit, or they could still die of it eventually?
At this point, the prevailing opinion is that they will need to continue to be treated, and if they stop being treated, they will eventually die. Now, there are some researchers that would say that after the most intense portion of the infestation passes by, and right now we're probably in about the most intense period. The ash tree is infested, the emerald ash borer has infested our area and is moving through. Once it kills off all the trees, once its host is killed off for the most part, infestation levels may decrease, and we may be able to do treatment every 2 years. And there may be some residual insecticide that stays in the tree. And so a lot of these things are unknown at this point. It's still developing. And as you know, kind of we're in this first stage, which is that in Burr Ridge and other neighboring communities, all the untreated ash trees are going to die off in the next 5 years, and the only ash trees that remain will be treated trees.
Yeah, I was told we have to do ours every 2 years, but now I'm wondering if it should be done every year.
You may be doing an injection, which can be done every 2 years. And so what we're doing is a root drench. It's a root injection. It's a soil injection, which on large scale is much less expensive. If you are a homeowner that has 2 or 3 ash trees that are very valuable to you because they might be mature trees, you're best served with an injection, which is probably what you're doing, which can be done quickly, and it is more expensive, but those can be done every 2 years.
And how old can ash trees grow?
Well, they can be several hundred years old.
Okay.
And, you know, there are some 30-inch ash trees. In fact, on that previous chart, I think we had a 42-inch ash tree in town. So they are native. Ash trees are native, and they exist in the native tree species population.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Paul, what role does the village arborist have in the treatment and recommendations on this?
Gary Gatlin is the village arborist. He was really the one that was spearheaded this concept and has carried it out, orchestrated it, and supervises the contractor. So he is the point person when we need to identify a tree for removal. He's the one who makes the determination on whether it in fact needs to be removed at that time, whether we wait another year and see if it can be deferred. It's not likely that an ash tree will recover once it reaches a certain state of dieback, but we like to not remove them unless we have a replacement ready within a year. And so there might be a case where there's a certain degree of dieback, but the tree is still leafing out, and we might try to defer it so that we can stagger in a replacement behind it. Mm-hmm. So he's involved with every single tree we plant. He's involved with every single tree we take down. So it's a big job, and he does a great job with it.
Well, please thank Gary Gatlin for all of us. And you and your team are doing a phenomenal job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Appreciate it.
So we get a motion to approve the contract.
Okay. Yes, may I have a motion to approve the contract for 2015 emerald ash borer treatment?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Ruzak?
Yes.
Trustee Grasso?
Yes.
4-0.
Motion passes 4-0. Under other considerations for announcement, deliberation, and/or discussion. Anyone? Okay, hearing none. Back to the audience portion. Are there any audience members who would like to address the board at this time? And reports and communications from village officials. Other than, okay, I probably have a couple myself, but anybody else? Well, the first one, of course, is that we'll be moving from now till to have a budget workshop at the end of this meeting. All attendees are welcome to stick around to it, but will not be aired on TV. I just wanted to bring even more attention to the award how Burr Ridge ranked in a recent survey. For those of you who did not see it, and wonderful e-brief that Janet put together, Janet Kowal puts together on a weekly basis, or on my Friday wrap summary. We had a Burr Ridge ranked or tied for first place as being one of the top Chicago suburbs. They ranked them based on a number of things, from high school graduation rate to commute time to average income to crime rate, et cetera. And it was very proud that Burr Ridge tied for first place. That was a great accomplishment, and boy, it took a lot of years to probably get there. Anyone else? Okay.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Roll call.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Grasso?
Yes.
Trustee Francis? Yes. Trustee Ruzak?
Yes.
4-0.
Okay, meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you for joining us.